the quiet source of strength within you. Imagine for a moment that your mind is no longer bound by daily exhaustion, no longer pulled down by the demands of life, but is softening, lightening like a stream of water flowing through a peaceful garden. When you let go of the dust that clings to your thoughts, you begin to see something simple yet forgotten for too long, that within every person exists a source of strength no one can take away. I witnessed this in my own life on an afternoon that seemed ordinary. I walked with heavy shoulders, believing my body was drained, believing I needed a long rest to feel whole again. But when I paused in silence, I sensed a warm and gentle current rising from deep within. It did not feel like the force of muscles or the rush of breath. It felt like a quiet reminder that strength does not come from the body but from the spirit, from the eternal life flowing inside me. As I opened myself to that feeling, everything began to shift. I saw clearly that we do not need to search for strength outside ourselves, because it has never left us. It is not created or consumed, it is simply covered by old beliefs and worries that grow heavier with time. Within you too is a living stream, a clear spring waiting to be released. When your mind stops resisting and judging, when you stop calling yourself weak or tired, you will feel that inner stream begin to move. It does not come from willpower or effort. It comes from remembering that you were born from a sacred source, and that source remains whole within you. In that moment, you do not need to try to be strong. You only need to allow the strength that is already yours to return. And when it does, you will understand a truth that can change your life, that peace is not a reward, but the nature of your soul, and strength is not something to seek, but something to receive when you finally open your heart. Tiredness is not the truth, only an old belief. For a long time, people have accepted tiredness as something natural, like proof that they have worked hard, tried their best, and used up all their energy. But that is not the truth. Tiredness is not destiny, and it is not the real nature of the body. It is only the shadow of an old belief, a belief repeated so often that we mistake it for reality. When Daniel, a man living in a small neighborhood on the west side of the city, began each day by whispering to himself that a long and heavy day was waiting for him, his body immediately obeyed that command. Even before stepping outside, his shoulders sank, his breath shortened, and his vitality folded inward like a plant closing its leaves before cold wind. In contrast, his neighbor, Mr. Thomas, already past 60, stepped into his garden each morning with calmness and gentle joy. He did not think about the weight of the day ahead. He only thought about making his garden a little more beautiful. And strangely, even after working for many hours under the sun, he felt brighter and stronger. The difference between them did not lie in their work age or physical condition. It lay in something invisible, the root of all experience, the thought. The body is a faithful servant that never argues with what the mind declares. When the mind says, "I am weak," the body weakens. When the mind says, "I am exhausted," the body obeys like receiving an order. But when the mind says, "I am renewed," the body rises like an instrument tuned to the right pitch. Emmet Fox often reminded us of this, that the body has no will of its own. It is only the material picture of what we quietly believe. And our beliefs are not always the truth, they are often just habits. If we believe tiredness is natural, tiredness will come. If we believe we must be drained before resting, exhaustion will become a cycle. A mistaken belief repeated for too long becomes experience, and that experience strengthens the belief again. Tiredness, therefore, is not the weight of work, but the weight of thought. It is like the woodcutter who spends every day chopping trees with a dull axe. He thinks he is tired because of the work, but the real cause of his exhaustion is the friction between the blunt blade and the wood, the constant effort made in the wrong way. The human mind is the same. When it is full of false beliefs, quick conclusions, and heavy images of life, it becomes dull, and every action carries the burden of that dullness. Some people do little but constantly resist, judge, and tighten within, and this stream of thought tires them more than any physical labor, while others work so much that observers expect them to collapse, yet they do not, because there is no inner friction. They work from peace, from acceptance, from the awareness that strength does not come from them, but flows through them. Tiredness appears only when a person disconnects from their inner source, when they believe they must operate on their own strength. But in truth, they were never designed to live apart from their source. It is like a device powered by endless current, but the user believes it runs only on a small battery. When the battery drains, they panic, then tire, then fear. But they forget that by reconnecting to the source, the current returns immediately. Tiredness, therefore, is a reminder, not a sentence. It reminds you that you have just stepped away from the life force that nourishes you. And with the right thought, with the truth, your energy shifts at once. Perhaps you feel this in your own life, that sometimes you are not tired because of the work, but because of the thoughts attached to the work. If you wish, you can share a short line to let me know you are here with the story. When you understand that tiredness is only a belief, you begin to see that you have the power to change your experience. You can rewrite the command you give your subconscious. You can train the body to respond to truth instead of habit. And the truth is simple. You are not tired because you are weak. You are tired because you believe you are weak. You are not exhausted because life is too heavy. You are exhausted because you believe you must carry everything alone. When you replace that belief with a gentler and truer thought, something closer to the nature of your soul, the body will adjust itself. Tiredness cannot stay when you remember you were born from strength. Tiredness cannot stand when you know that the life flowing through you is greater than any fear you have carried. And when you truly understand, this tiredness will no longer rule your life, but will be only a small visitor, a signal reminding you to return to the source that has never once abandoned you, a signal that leads you back to your center. There is something most people do not realize, that tiredness is not the force ruining your life. It is not a sign of failure, not proof that you have drained all your energy, and not evidence that you only have a limited amount of strength. Tiredness is a signal, a very honest signal. It shows you that in that moment you have stepped away from your center. You have loosened your connection with the flow of strength that has always sustained you. This signal does not judge you. It simply reminds you that you have just stepped out of the peace that has belonged to you since the beginning. I remember one morning many years ago when everything in my life seemed to rise at once. Responsibilities, worries, and the noise of life made me believe I had reached my limit, that there was no inner power left to move forward. But at what felt like the darkest moment, a question rose inside me, not in sound but in awareness, asking whether I was truly tired or simply believing a thought that said I was tired. I sat down without trying to breathe deeply or force calm. I just let myself be still. And in that stillness, something gentle happened. I saw clearly that I had never been exhausted. I had only tried to carry the whole world on my small shoulders. I forgot that strength does not come from my effort, but from the one living within me, from the clear and peaceful spirit, always flowing beneath every layer of emotion and concern. When I realized that I did not instantly become stronger or more enthusiastic, instead I felt myself placed back into the right position, like an object that had slipped off its axis, and was now aligned again with its true center. Tiredness faded not because I rested enough, but because I stopped resisting the truth. I stopped believing I had to do everything alone. Emmet Fox once said that we do not need new strength, we only need to return to the source of strength already within us. And I found this to be completely true. When a person steps away from their center, even small things feel heavy. A sentence can make them sad. A simple task wears them down. A normal situation becomes pressure. Not because life has changed, but because they have lost their inner anchor. On the other hand, when a person returns to their center, they can work much without breaking, walk through challenges, without fear, face worries, without being swept away by them. Because they are not acting from their own strength, they are acting from the strength flowing through them. That is the difference. Tiredness is not depletion, but misalignment. When you are off your axis, you feel heavy. When you return to it, you become light again. People often think they need long rest time away from life, fewer tasks, fewer responsibilities. But what they truly need is not to escape, but to return. Return to the truth that they are not alone, that a spiritual current is always flowing in them, that the energy they seek is not outside, but in every quiet breath they take. When we see tiredness as an enemy, we resist it, fear it, try to escape it. But when we see tiredness as a signal, we listen, we realize we have wandered a little, and we gently come back. What drains you is not the work you do, but the distance between you and your true center. And the farther you wander, the heavier tiredness feels. But with one moment of returning, strength flows back like water finding its riverbed. It does not need time, it needs recognition. Each time you feel heavy, pause for a moment and ask whether this is the truth or only an old belief repeating itself. Ask whether you are acting from worry or from peace. Ask whether you are living by your own effort or allowing the sacred energy to move through you. You may be surprised that with just one shift in thought, the body changes its tone. With one shift in direction, the energy changes its flow. Tiredness is not the problem, forgetting who you are is the problem. And when you remember, everything changes. From where you are sitting right now, you can try this. You do not need to do anything, simply notice that there is a part of you that has never been tired, never been depleted, never left you. That part is your center where peace lives. Tiredness is only the gentle reminder that leads you back to the place you belong. The mind is the builder, and the body is the house. Within every person there is something few ever pay attention to, that the mind is not only a place where thoughts appear, but is the most patient and powerful builder, working in silence every day. And your body, your emotions, your daily strength are the house that this builder is constructing without pause. Every thought that appears in you never passes by without effect. It drops into the subconscious like a small brick, and the subconscious uses that brick to create an experience that matches it. Some people wonder why they are always tired, even when they do nothing, demanding why a small task feels heavy, why a small change makes them wary. The reason is not in the body, but in the construction happening quietly inside them. From childhood, they may have heard words like, to live, you must suffer. Working means being tired. Life is a burden only when you exhaust yourself. Do you deserve rest? These words seem harmless, just repeated by adults, but they become the first blueprint of the mind. The subconscious, like a humble worker, never argues and never questions. It only listens and carries out the plan. If it receives a blueprint saying that life is heavy, it builds a body that tires easily. If it receives a blueprint saying that you must be empty before you can rest, it will make you empty indeed. And once the structure is formed, it repeats itself daily, making you believe that tiredness is natural as fate and cannot be changed. But the truth is that the blueprint is only a habit, not a law. It is like giving a builder a faulty drawing. He will follow it faithfully, unaware that he is constructing a house that is cramped and lacking light. The mind works the same way. It only carries out what you already believe. If you believe you are weak, it makes you weak. If you believe you tire easily, it turns that belief into reality. But if you believe your strength comes from a sacred source, it will also begin building a new house, one that is wider, brighter, and stronger. Many people do not see that the subconscious does not distinguish between a joke and a true statement, between a careless comment and a deliberate one. It only receives vibration and repetition. When you say, "I am so tired," dozens of times each week, the subconscious understands it as a command. When you feel a heavy day, before even getting out of bed, the subconscious accepts that as the plan for the whole day. And when it has built according to that plan, you look at the result and conclude that you were always that way. No, you were not born like that. You are simply living in a house built from old thoughts, acting as bricks and mortar. But here is the beautiful part. The builder inside you is not stubborn. If you give it a new blueprint, it will begin dismantling the old walls and rebuilding piece by piece, gently but surely. When you replace sentences like "I cannot take this anymore" with sentences like "strength is being renewed in me," the subconscious starts rearranging the inner structure. When you stop calling life a burden and begin calling it a guided journey, new doors open inside you. When you stop thinking you are exhausted and begin thinking you are supported, the old energy starts flowing in a new direction. Emmet Fox compared the mind to a garden, but you can also imagine it as a builder and the subconscious as a construction site. If you plant the right seed, the garden blooms. If you give the right plan, the builder raises a strong house. The reason many people suffer is that they plant flowers and thorns at the same time. They offer bright plans in the morning, but slip dark lines into them by noon. They say, "I am fine" at sunrise and think "I am tired" again by afternoon. They ask for peace at night, but fall asleep in worry. The construction site receives mixed signals, and the inner house becomes unstable, sometimes bright, sometimes dim, and the inner space becomes tight and heavy. But once you begin to notice, to choose thoughts, to speak to yourself with kindness and truth, you will witness something remarkable. The builder inside you responds at once. You do not need to tear down the whole house. You only need to change one command, one small brick of thought, and the structure begins to transform over time. And the first thing to change is your strength. When the mind carries a lighter blueprint, the body follows. When the mind builds a house based on the truth that you are an expression of sacred strength, the body no longer has reason to be tired in the old way. It begins to give back to you what you give to it through your thoughts. Once you understand this, tiredness is no longer a mystery. It is only the result of old blueprints in the mind. And like any structure, it can always be repaired, expanded, opened for new light. All you need is to offer your inner builder a higher, brighter, more truthful design. The rest is not your job. It is the work of the mind. It always knows how to turn thoughts into experience. And you have the right to give it thoughts worthy of your soul. A morning ritual for the soul. Each morning when the first light enters the room, I pause for a few seconds before getting up, not to extend my sleep, but to listen for the first brick my mind has silently placed for the new day. I realize that the mind is like a small stream. If left to flow on its own, it will return you to old pathways, but if you guide it the moment you wake, the whole day changes. I used to have mornings where opening my eyes felt like being pulled back into yesterday, into unfinished tasks, into worries that had not yet quieted. One small thought was enough to make my whole body feel heavy. But then I learned that the morning did not bring that heaviness. I was the one choosing those thoughts without knowing it. The subconscious waits at the door each dawn, ready to take your first word as the command for the entire day. When I understood this, I began practicing a simple but powerful ritual. Every morning before thinking of anything else, I place my hand on my chest and whisper a quiet thank you for the new day. Not thank you for something specific, just thank you for being here alive, moving in the rhythm that God is guiding me through. Then I ask myself one question: what is my mind carrying this morning? I let that question open the way, and I listen. Some mornings I find a soft worry lingering. Some mornings the old voices appear saying, today will be hard, today will be tiring, today I am not strong enough for what I must do. When that happens, I observe them gently, like watching clouds drift across the sky. I do not resist. I do not force myself to think positive. I simply look at them and say, this thought is not mine, and it does not come from the truth, and I let it go. When I say that, I feel as if I am removing a wrong brick from the house I want to build. Then I place a truer and simpler command in its place, that today I am guided, supported, and renewed. I do not need to strive to be strong. I only need to remember that strength is already within me. I imagine a soft light descending, not a bright beam, but a warm glow that reconnects me with the spiritual source. That light seems to sweep through the small corners of my mind, clearing the remains of yesterday and making space for something good to enter. And with a few gentle breaths, I feel myself stepping into the new day, not with heavy shoulders, but with an open heart. This ritual is not magic. It is simply my way of reminding myself that I can choose the first thought of my day. The more I practice, the more I see the power of choosing a right beginning. It changes not only my mood, but the way I act, the way I speak, the way I walk, the way I see the world. Because when the mind is cleansed, everything else becomes lighter. I share this because I believe you can do it too. You do not need special tools, only a few minutes of awareness each morning. Ask yourself one question: what am I carrying today? Observe it. Then choose another thought, a lighter one, a truer one closer to who you really are. A simple thought, like I am guided, I am peaceful, I am renewed. You do not need to feel it right away. Plant it in your mind, and it will root in its own time. And if you have come this far and feel you want to try, let me know by leaving a simple word like I am ready, or even just the number 1. I want to know you are here and opening a new chapter for yourself. Because each time you speak that word, you are placing the first brick for a new house, one that is wider, brighter, and more aligned with your soul. True rest is not lying still, but releasing resistance. There is an old misunderstanding deeply rooted in many lives, the belief that rest only happens when we stop, when we do nothing, when we withdraw from activity and lie down in a quiet corner. But the truth of the spiritual life does not work that way. Real rest does not depend on action or non-action. It lies in the state within. A person can lie down for hours and still feel tired, while another can work all day and still feel light. The difference is the level of resistance inside them. I remember a woman named Sarah, who lived in a small town near the sea. From the outside, everyone thought she was someone who needed plenty of rest, because her face always showed a trace of exhaustion. She had a simple office job, steady hours, weekends off, and regular chances to travel or relax. Yet she always felt drained. No amount of sleep was enough. No vacation made her better. When speaking with her, I realized she was not tired because of her job, but because of her inner attitude toward life. Everything she did carried a layer of invisible resistance. When going to work, she thought she was entering a long day. When opening her email, she thought she could not handle it. When meeting someone slightly difficult, she wondered why everything fell on her. She did not do much, but her mind was always tight, always defensive, always feeling that she was enduring life. And it was this endurance that wore her down. One day, Sarah asked me why long vacations never helped her. I told her she had gone on vacation with her body, but not with her mind. Rest is not changing places, it is changing states. Rest does not mean stopping, but stopping the resistance. When the inside is tense, guarded, pressured, and pushing everything away, even lying on a beach or resting in a luxurious resort will not soothe you. The resistance follows like a shadow. I explained that there are two kinds of tiredness, the kind that comes from physical activity and the kind that comes from mental friction. Activity may tire your muscles, but friction is what exhausts your being. And friction appears when you do everything with heavy thoughts, with inner tightness, with the feeling that you are rowing against the current of life. When Sarah understood this, she tried a small change. Whenever she began a task, instead of thinking about getting through it, she whispered to herself that she was being guided. She softened her shoulders, eased her breath, and allowed what she was doing to happen instead of forcing it. That was all, yet she said the tasks that once made her tense became more pleasant. The most surprising thing was that she began feeling lighter even on very busy days. The lightness did not come from the environment or from time off. It came from releasing resistance. Emmet Fox once wrote that most human exhaustion does not come from what they do, but from the attitude they carry while doing it. A simple task becomes heavy because the mind loads it with unnecessary meaning. A responsibility becomes a burden because people think they must carry everything alone, must control everything, must be perfect in all things. But when they enter the same task with a quiet spirit, with a soft breath, with the awareness that they are a channel rather than the source, energy flows naturally through them. You can see this even in the smallest activities. When you wash dishes in a hurry, you feel tired. When you wash dishes in presence, you feel light. When you walk with a chaotic mind, you lose breath quickly. When you walk with attention and a natural rhythm, you feel comfortable. When you work in fear of mistakes or judgment, you burn much more energy than needed. But when you work with the thought that you are supported, not alone, not required to strain, you discover strength that lasts much longer. True rest, therefore, does not conflict with activity. It is the state of non-resistance. It is flowing with the rhythm of life, not giving up but no longer fighting what is happening. It is the softening of the mind in the midst of change. It is the relaxation inside even when the world outside is busy. When you learn to rest while doing, you no longer need to escape life to find refuge. Life becomes your place of rest. Every action becomes an opportunity to feel guided. Every breath becomes a reminder that you are not working alone. And something beautiful happens. You accomplish more, but tire less because your strength is no longer leaking away through invisible friction. What you need is not more time off, but less resistance. And when that resistance quiets, you will see that the sacred energy was always there waiting for you to open the door so it can flow into your life. The living stream within you. There are moments when even after resting, even after trying to stay calm, even after lowering your resistance, you still feel a vague heaviness inside. It is not the tiredness of lack of sleep, nor the tiredness of work, but the tiredness of the soul, as if an inner current has narrowed without your noticing. I often call this an inner energy blockage, and its root does not lie in circumstances, but in forgetting that there is a living stream flowing within you. This stream is not a poetic metaphor. It is a spiritual reality. In every person there is an unlimited current, a life force that keeps moving, renewing, flowing like a river crossing a desert to bring life back to places thought to be dried and gone. This stream is the spiritual energy God placed within you, and it has never run dry or stopped. It is only covered by stones of worry, fear, self-blame, and old beliefs telling you that you are weak, limited, or that life is against you. I went through this during a time when I felt unable to rise again. Everything seemed to come at once, every pressure pulled me down, and every inner voice sounded gray. But one afternoon, walking along a lakeside path in the city, I heard the water touching the shore. That sound awakened something forgotten in me, that the life inside me had the same tone. It was never loud, never demanding, never forceful. It simply flowed. I stopped, closed my eyes, and imagined that stream flowing from the top of my head to my chest, then to my belly, then to my legs, as if my whole being was being washed clean of the heavy thoughts I had carried for too long. What happened was not a miracle. It was a return to myself, a return to the energy that had never left me. Since then, I created a simple practice to reopen the flow whenever I feel myself drying up. You can try it right now anywhere, as long as you are willing to let your heart quiet for a moment. Sit with a straight back but without tension. Close your eyes. Breathe in softly, breathe out slowly. Then imagine above your head a stream of clear light, like spring water at its source. This stream flows down, not fast, not forceful, but steady and alive. Wherever it flows, you feel that place soften, brighten, and loosen from the spiritual dust that has accumulated. Let this stream of light move through your whole body, into the tense places, into the heavy places, into the places where you often hide your emotions. When it touches each area, allow that place to release and be renewed. The most important part of this practice is not a perfect picture, but allowing yourself to feel that this energy is real because it truly is. It is the living flow, always trying to move through you, waiting only for you to stop closing the door. When you do this each day or whenever you feel tight, you will realize something profound, that the energy within you is not as fragile as you once believed. It is not thin, not scarce, not dependent on emotion to exist. It is only temporarily blocked by false ideas about yourself. Each time you return to that stream, you remind yourself of a truth, that you are the expression of a source stronger than fear, stronger than hurt, stronger than the events that once pushed you down. And the beautiful thing is, you do not need to remove every stone at once. You only need to let the water flow, and it will do the rest. A living stream is never blocked forever. It will find its path, slip into every small opening, and carry away what no longer serves you. When you live in this state, you will see that your energy no longer depends on outer conditions. You can be in a busy day and still feel light. You can face a great challenge and still feel peace. You can look back at your life and know that no matter how many dry seasons you have walked through, the river within you has always been flowing, always present, always enough. And as long as you remember it, you will never truly run dry. The body is the faithful servant of the mind. There is a gentle but profound truth many people overlook, that the body never goes ahead of the mind. It is not the leader, not the one giving orders, but the loyal servant, always waiting for the signal of its master. Whatever you think about yourself, your body will echo it exactly. If you believe you are weak, the body will show weakness. If you believe you are exhausted, the body will immediately download that command. It does not resist, does not judge, does not question whether you are right or wrong. It simply carries out what the mind has spoken through thoughts, emotions, and beliefs. I remember a man named James who lived not far from my house. James always began the day with the same quiet sentence that today will probably be tiring. He said it lightly as a habit, unaware of what he was teaching his body. And just as he said nearly every day, his body showed tiredness. He sighed often, his shoulders drooped, his steps were heavy, even though his job was not demanding. People around him thought he was weak, but the real cause was not in his muscles or bones. It was in the invisible commands he issued every morning. A few houses away lived Mrs. Martha, already quite old, yet she moved with surprising agility. When I asked her secret, she smiled and said that every morning she tells her body that today we work together, so be gentle and flexible. She did not say this to trick herself. She said it as a blessing, as a loving command. And her body being the faithful servant, it is followed exactly. Two people, two lives, but the difference lay in their thoughts, not their age or ability. The body does not operate on logic. It operates on belief. It does not care how old you are, only what you believe about yourself. Emmet Fox once said that the body is the instrument and the mind is the musician. When the musician is tense, the music becomes distorted. When the musician is at peace, the sound becomes clear. You cannot expect the instrument to sing beautifully if the musician's hands are still trembling. And you cannot expect your body to live in vibrant energy when your mind is filled with anxiety and harsh stories about yourself. The body is simply the screen projecting the film you are playing inside. There are moments when you feel exhausted, yet the exhaustion does not come from action. It comes from the story you have been telling your body for months or years, the story that life is too heavy, that you are not capable, that you are running out of strength. When that story repeats, the body has no choice but to act it out. But the beautiful thing is that you can change that story at any moment. You do not need to change the body first. You only need to change the builder, the storyteller, the voice you whisper to yourself each day. I once witnessed a powerful transformation in a woman named Helen. She worked in customer service, facing pressure and difficult calls every day. She often ended her shifts drained, with her shoulders and neck stiff like stone. When she opened up to me, I asked her one simple question: what do you tell your body every day? She paused and said that perhaps she always whispered inside that this job is wearing me down. She said it like a confession, and I saw clearly that this was the command her body had been following. When I encouraged her to change, not her job but her inner sentence, she began a small practice. Each morning before entering the office, she placed her hand on her chest and whispered thank you to her body for walking with her, and that today we will move through everything gently. At first it was only an experiment, but after a few weeks, Helen felt her shoulders soften, her breath deepen, and her energy last longer. The body does not need force. It needs guidance. When you treat your body with gratitude and give it the right instructions, it becomes your greatest companion. But when you treat it with fear and criticism, it becomes a mirror of those thoughts. No body is against you. It is only listening to you. If you give it commands of anxiety, it trembles. If you give it commands of peace, it opens. If you give it commands of strength, it rises. And this is true for everyone regardless of age situation or health history. You are not limited by what your body has gone through. You are led by what your mind believes now. When you remember this, you no longer see your body as a burden, but as a companion needing loving direction. And day by day you will watch it respond with new life. Emotion is spiritual current, and you can choose its frequency. There is a truth many people only realize after too much hurt, that emotion is not something that appears and disappears like passing wind. Emotion is spiritual current. It moves through you as a field of vibration, and that vibration shapes your strength, your clarity, and your ability to stay steady. Every emotion carries its own frequency. Low emotions such as fear, self-pity, anger, jealousy, and disappointment make your body contract, your breath shorten, and your mind shrink like a room without light. Higher emotions such as gratitude, hope, peace, and love make you open, expand your chest, soften your breath, and brighten your mind like a lamp just cleaned. I often compare emotions to sound in a music room. If you play a sad song, the room becomes sad. If you play a joyful song, the room shifts instantly. The room never creates the sound. It only reflects what you allow to play. Your mind and body are the same. They do not create emotions on their own. They reflect the emotions you feed most consistently. Many people tell me they cannot control their emotions, that emotions arrive suddenly, and they can only endure them. But that is not the whole truth. You cannot stop an emotion from appearing, but you can choose which emotion stays and which emotion leaves. Emotion is like a visitor knocking on your door. It may arrive uninvited, but you decide who enters your home. I remember a man named Robert who was often overwhelmed. Small things worried him, big things frightened him. He lived in a low vibration, and his energy always felt like it was draining away. When I asked whether he noticed the first emotion appearing each day, he said he never paid attention. He only knew he felt tired and sad. I told him to observe for a few days. After a week, he returned and said that each morning he woke with one sentence in his mind, that today will probably be difficult. And that sentence invited the first heavy emotion of the day. Then the whole day followed that tone. What he did not know was that he could stop right there, just pausing for a few seconds and asking whether that emotion was true or only a habit was enough to shift the frequency. You can do this as well. You do not need to fight low emotions. You only need to introduce a higher, lighter, brighter one. Low emotion is not resolved by logic, but by the opposite energy. When you are worried and you try to think positive with logic, you often feel even more anxious. But if you stop, place your hand on your chest, breathe softly, and invite a different emotion, everything begins to shift. Think of a moment that made you grateful, even a very small one. Remember a sentence that once calmed you. Imagine someone who made you feel loved. When you do this, the atmosphere inside you changes, and the heavy emotion loses its place. This is not avoidance. It is transformation. You use a higher frequency to dissolve a lower one. Just like a dark room, you do not chase the darkness away. You switch on the light. Darkness is not something to fight. It disappears when light appears. Emmet Fox once said that emotion is the breath of the soul. The soul breathes freely when emotion is light and spacious. The soul struggles when emotion is tight and hurried. So whenever you feel emotionally tired, remember that you are not the victim of emotion. You are the one choosing it. The only practice you need is to notice the first emotion that appears in you each day. It is like the opening note of the music of your day. If that note is low, the whole day can be pulled downward. If that note is high, you will move through everything more lightly. I want to ask you something right now. Are you feeling an emotion that is pulling your energy down? If yes, share it with me in a short line just to let me know you are present in this journey. And the moment you speak it, that is already a sign that you are shifting your inner frequency. Once you understand this mechanism, you will no longer let emotions lead you aimlessly. You will hold the steering wheel again, raise your vibration, and guide yourself back to the clarity of your soul. And then you will feel your energy become stronger, cleaner, and far more lasting than anything you have known. When I learned to align with my soul, there was a season in my life that I will never forget, not because it was painful or dramatic, but because it taught me the most important lesson about energy and spiritual direction. During that time, I worked constantly, trying to produce results, building things I believed were right. Yet no matter how much I accomplished, I felt myself slowly draining. Not draining because I lacked strength, but because I lacked alignment. Each night before sleep, I sensed something was off, as if I was walking on a path that did not fully belong to me. No one pressured me, but I pressured myself the most. I woke with a heaviness in my chest, not sadness, not worry, but a subtle misalignment. It was like a compass shifted just 1 degree. You do not notice the difference at first, but travel far enough, and you will see how far you have wandered. Some mornings I looked at my tasks, and though I knew I was capable of them, something inside me felt pulled elsewhere. I did not understand it then. I thought I was simply tired and needed rest. But after resting, everything was the same. Then one evening, sitting alone in a quiet room, I placed my hand on my chest and asked myself what was wearing me down. The answer came not as words, but as a clear awareness that I was living days that did not match who I really was inside. I was doing many right things, but not from the right place. I was acting from habit and obligation rather than inner guidance. I was meeting the standards of the world, but never asking whether my soul agreed. And this quiet disharmony was the true source of my exhaustion. When I realized this, I sat still for a long time. I did not try to fix it. I did not try to change anything immediately. I simply allowed the truth to settle inside me. I remembered something Emmet Fox once wrote, that energy is never lost, it only flows in the direction you allow. And I saw that my energy had not disappeared. It had simply flowed away from my true calling. I had been giving it to things that were not mine, while the things meant for me remained underfed. That night I made a very small but very important decision, that I would not do anything unless my inner self agreed. I would not act from fear of lack, not from pressure to prove myself, not from the habit of trying to keep up with the world. I would act only when what I did aligned with the truth inside me. The next day, when I looked at my list of tasks, the heaviness was gone. I listened quietly, and I knew at once which tasks were truly mine and which were not. Things I once thought I was obligated to do became easy to set aside. And things I once avoided now felt warm, as if my soul was whispering that this was the real direction. The surprising thing was that the moment I aligned with myself again, my energy changed. I felt brighter, wider, and able to do twice as much without feeling half as tired. The alignment brought not only energy, but a deep and steady peace. Instead of trying to control everything, I let my inner guidance lead the way. I no longer needed to know the entire journey. I only needed to know the next step. And from that point on, I understood that direction is not about seeing the whole map. It is about recognizing the direction your soul is calling you toward. When your soul agrees, you have strength. When your soul does not agree, no amount of effort will feel right. The difference between those two states is so great that once you taste the aligned way of living, you will never want to return to the old one. Looking back now, I see clearly that what exhausted me was not the work itself. It was stepping off the spiritual course meant for me. When I returned to my true direction, everything became lighter. My energy returned like water finding its riverbed. And I know this is true for you as well. You are not weak. You have simply turned your compass toward a path that is not yours. And once you turn it back, once you align again, everything will change. When I learned to move with the rhythm of time, there was a long period in my life when I constantly felt I was moving slower than life itself. Each morning, even before the clock signaled that it was time to leave the house, my mind had already run ahead by dozens of steps. I thought about unfinished tasks, people waiting for me, responsibilities demanding my attention. I ran after everything in my head before I even stepped outside the door. And as a natural result, I always felt short of time, always felt pulled backward, always felt as if I was late for something I could not name. That feeling drained me. I did not lack time to work. I lacked the energy to be still. I lacked the grounding before entering the flow of the day. One afternoon, while walking home, I suddenly realized that the very act of trying to run faster than time was what exhausted me the most. Life was not chasing me. I was chasing an idea that I must always be faster, always ahead, always finishing before everyone else. Time was quiet and gentle. I was noisy and hurried. I was too busy to see that time was not against me. It simply refused to match the wrong rhythm I kept forcing on it. When I sat down and reflected, I understood that time is a sacred rhythm. It is not fast, not slow, not pushing anyone forward, not holding anyone back. It rises and falls like the breath of the universe. And when a person works against that rhythm, they lose energy just like someone swimming against a strong current. The harder they push, the more tired they become. But when they begin to merge with that rhythm, when they breathe with time, move with time and trust that everything has its right moment, they become lighter and energy is born from that harmony. I tried something simple. Instead of forcing myself to finish everything quickly, I began listening to time. I watched how a task opened at its own pace, how a conversation needed time to reach depth, how a decision needed silence to become clear, and how a responsibility needed space to be done well. I realized that time was never lacking. I had been using it from fear instead of from trust. The day I changed my attitude, time changed its shape. My schedule stayed the same, but the tension dissolved. Tasks that once felt heavy began to unfold as if I were floating on a calm river. I accomplished more, yet felt less tired. I no longer needed to rush because I understood that time had never left me behind. It had simply been waiting for me to step into the right rhythm. I learned that the greatest tension in a person does not come from the amount of work they have, but from the belief that they are late. But no one is truly late on the path God has prepared for them. Everything arrives on time, every lesson appears in its season, and every opportunity waits until you are ready to receive it. Time is not an enemy. Time is the quiet friend adjusting your pace. If you move too fast, it slows you with moments of exhaustion. If you move too slowly, it gently opens situations that require you to step forward. All of it is to bring you into the sacred rhythm woven into every movement of the universe. I stopped trying to outrun time. I stopped fearing that I would miss something important. I stopped thinking that I must prove my worth by bending time to my will. Now I walk as if I am moving inside a piece of music. Every task has a rhythm. Every moment has a place. And every breath is a reminder that I am not late. I am right on time. When you understand this, a deep peace begins to fill you. It does not come from having fewer tasks. It comes from no longer fighting the rhythm of life. And from that peace, your energy begins to bloom. It no longer leaks away in fear of time. It becomes the strength that carries you with every step. If you are reading this, I invite you to try something simple. Leave a comment with a gentle line, like "I am ready to change," or even just the number 1, to mark the moment you begin stepping into your own rhythm. You will see that even a small intention is enough for time to begin opening around you. When decline is only a cycle, you can reverse. There are moments when you feel as though you are walking down an unnamed slope. You are not sure when it began. You only know that each passing day you feel a little weaker, a little heavier, a little less inspired. There is no major event, no clear pain, only a quiet dimming, like a lamp being turned down slowly. And you begin to believe that this is the truth, that you are fading, that age or pressure or disappointment has finally overtaken you. But the spiritual truth does not work that way. Decline is not a sentence. It is only a direction. And any direction can be reversed the moment you reclaim the inner guidance that has always been yours. I once entered such a season during a long winter. I was not sick. Nothing dramatic happened yet. Every morning I felt less than the version of myself from the day before. Everything felt heavier. My will was low. My mind was wrapped in a soft fog. I walked as though covered by a damp coat that refused to dry. I thought I was truly burning out, thought perhaps this was a phase life required me to endure. But one afternoon, seeing the thin light of day fall through my window, I remembered something I had told others many times, that energy does not disappear. It only becomes blocked, and if it is blocked, it can be opened again. Which means I was not weak. I was simply connected to the smallest part of myself rather than the fullest one. When I realized this, I paused, took a deep breath, and whispered to myself a simple but powerful sentence, that I am not going down. I am only off course. And the moment that sentence echoed inside me, something loosened like a stretched thread, finally relaxing. Spiritual truth works like this. It does not require noise to return. It only requires you to stop believing the wrong thing. From that day on, I watched every small movement within me. Each time I thought a sentence that made me weaker, like "I cannot anymore," or "I am declining," I stopped and replaced it with one that lifted me. Not forced positivity, but the truth that my strength comes from an unchanging source. I created a small ritual to reverse direction whenever I sensed myself drifting downward. I stood tall, planted my feet firmly on the ground, closed my eyes, and imagined energy rising from my feet upward through my body. I imagined tiredness no longer as the ruler, but as dust being lifted off my mind. And then I whispered, "I return." Only 2 words. But each time I said them, I felt my energy turn upward. I understood then that the human spirit never falls freely. People only think they are falling because they are looking downward. They see the dimness and believe they are sinking. But if they look upward, they realize even the moments of weakness are part of a rising curve. No downward momentum is beyond reversal when a person remembers where they come from. What many do not realize is that decline does not come from the body, but from the sentences they repeat too long. Sentences like "I am going downhill," or "I am not who I used to be," or "I am losing my vitality" are commands the subconscious fulfills faithfully. And when people believe these words, they walk like someone tired, breathe like someone tired, live like someone tired. Yet, if they change just one sentence, if they say "life is returning to me," or "I am being renewed each hour," the body listens instantly. It always listens, and it will shift direction according to the signal you give it. I have seen many people transform by simply changing the way they speak to themselves. A woman who believed she had lost all strength told me after 1 week of practicing the reversal ritual that she felt like an entirely different person. A man who felt he was aging too fast found that when he affirmed daily that spiritual strength flows in him beyond the limits of age, his body responded with flexibility he thought he had lost. No one truly declines. They only forget how to rise. And when they remember, they come alive again. If you are reading this and recognize that you too are walking down a slope, whether emotionally or spiritually or physically, I want you to know one simple and hopeful truth, that you still have the power to turn back. And turning back does not require effort. It only requires awareness. When I learned the true power of prayer, I grew up seeing people pray as if they were trying to persuade an external force to change something in their lives. They asked for strength, for peace, for guidance, as if these things were not already present and had to be handed down only when they begged enough or with enough intensity. I prayed that way too. I believed prayer was effort, a plea rising from a place of weakness. But one day, when I was so exhausted that I could not form a full sentence, I learned the true nature of prayer. That day I did not ask for anything. I simply placed my hands on my chest and let the noise of the world fall away. Within me there was a deep stillness, so deep that I began hearing truths that my busy mind had always drowned out. In that stillness I realized prayer is not telling God what we want, but opening a passage for Him to enter our awareness. Prayer is not trying to change the world, but shifting our inner vibration so the world can meet us in a clearer way. I saw that every word I spoke in prayer was an instruction of energy, a shift of frequency, one that the soul hears more clearly than anyone else. When I said I want to be at peace, I was silently affirming that I was not at peace. But when I said I open myself so the peace that already exists can flow through me, that was a completely different movement. A movement from closed to open, from separate to connected. And that opening was the real prayer. When I said, "Give me strength," I was believing I had none. But when I said, "I allow the divine strength within me to act," I was returning my soul to its center, to the place where strength had never left. Prayer in that sense was no longer pleading, it was remembering. And when I prayed from remembrance, my energy shifted immediately, not because I said something beautiful, but because I returned to the frequency of truth. I remember an evening when I sat by the window watching darkness cover the sky. My mind felt heavy like stone. I thought of the things I had not accomplished, the responsibilities pressing on me, and the worries circling in my head. I felt myself shrinking like a lamp dimming from lack of oil. I tried praying in the usual way, asking to overcome, asking to be strong, but each request made me feel weaker. Then in that moment I realized I was praying from the wrong place. I was praying as someone empty, someone cut off from the larger energy already living in me. I went quiet. I placed my hand on my chest, and I simply said, I open myself so the life already here can flow through me. That sentence was not meant to change circumstances. It was meant to change my position inside myself, and immediately I felt as if a door opened in my heart. The air inside me widened, my breath deepened, and the strangest thing was that I no longer felt alone in the inner struggle I had created. I felt a gentle current-like light flowing into the places where tension had lived. And I knew then that God does not come from outside to give anything. He only needs space within us to do His work. Prayer is not calling Him in, it is removing what blocks Him. Since then, my way of praying changed. I no longer see prayer as trying to be heard, but as tuning my vibration. When I pray, I do not reach outward. I turn inward to the presence already within. I do not beg, I allow. I do not demand, I open. I do not judge my life. I let truth guide me. And I truly believe anyone can pray in this way. You do not need loud words, many words, or any posture of effort. You only need one honest moment and a willingness to open yourself to the life flowing through all of us. When you pray like this, you no longer feel abandoned. You feel lifted. You understand that prayer is not what moves God, it is what moves you back to Him. And when you return, you do not receive only an answer. You receive the energy to walk the path ahead. When my soul learned how to truly rest for many years, I believed that in order to rest, I had to stop everything, leave my responsibilities, go somewhere far away and find a perfect quiet space to detach from life. I thought rest happened only when the body lay down, when the mind stepped away from duty, when life paused long enough for me to breathe. But the more life I lived, the more seasons I walked through, the more I realized something entirely different, that true rest does not happen when you stop. It happens when you return. Return to what? Return to the place your soul left without you noticing. There were days when I did very little yet felt more exhausted than days filled with work. There were days when I had time off, no demands, no pressure, and still there was a noise inside me that would not quiet. I tried lying down, but my mind did not lie with me. I turned off every sound around me, but the sound within kept beating against my chest like a heavy rain. Then one day, I understood that the soul is never tired because of action. It is tired when it drifts away from its center. When the soul is not where it belongs, a person becomes heavy, anxious, short of breath, and dim of clarity. None of these are the tiredness of the body. They are the depletion of a soul that has wandered too far. One late afternoon, I entered a moment of unexpected stillness. Light from the end of the day touched the window, and I suddenly stopped all thought. I did nothing special. I simply placed my hand on my chest and whispered a call I had forgotten for many years, come back here. My soul heard it. I did not see anything happen outside, but inside there was a tiny shift, like a bird landing after flying too long. I understood then that true rest is not about abandoning everything. It is letting the soul return to the place where it can breathe. That is what I now call the rest of the soul. When the soul rests, you no longer need silence around you because silence has returned within you. You do not need long vacations to escape because you no longer feel chased by life. And you do not need to force yourself to be strong because strength rises naturally from the stillness you have reclaimed. I realize that we are not exhausted because we do too much. We are exhausted because we do things without our soul. We speak while our soul stands aside. We try while our soul is absent. When the soul does not participate in our actions, everything becomes a burden. But when the soul is present, even small tasks become gentle movements. Rest for the soul is the end of resistance, the end of pushing against life, the end of pushing against yourself, the end of fighting the path God placed before you. It is a surrender not born from weakness, but from giving up the belief that human strength alone must carry everything. I began practicing a small ritual whenever I felt my soul had drifted. Not drifted in a mystical sense, but in the sense that I had lost connection with the life flowing inside me. I would simply sit down, place my hand on my chest, close my eyes, and whisper, "I am here." That sentence was my way of telling myself that I choose to return to truth, to my own heart, to the stillness that is always mine to enter. It required no preparation, no knowledge, not even many minutes, only intention. And intention is enough to bring the soul back faster than you expect. Once I was walking on a crowded street filled with worry, breathing shallow, my mind tangled. I thought I needed to solve everything immediately, but the only thing I needed was to call my soul back. I placed my hand on my chest, right there among the crowd, and whispered, "I am here." A shift happened instantly. Everything around me was still loud, still crowded, still demanding, but I was no longer pulled by it. I did not need to escape. I only needed to return inward. And in that moment, I understood that the soul does not require silence to rest. It only needs you not to leave it behind. Today, as you listen to this story, I want to ask you something to keep you present with yourself. How long has it been since you let your soul rest? How long have you been living, doing, trying, enduring without asking where your soul is? If you feel something move inside you as you read this, thank you for your honesty. When I realized the living energy hidden within me, I spent a very long part of my life trying to be strong by my own effort. I believed that if I tried hard enough, stayed disciplined enough, pushed myself enough, I would keep my energy, keep my clarity, keep my will. I thought strength lived in what I did, in what I achieved, in how I handled challenges. Then one day, when my body slipped into a level of exhaustion that no amount of self-encouragement could reach, I had to face a truth I had avoided for years, that I am not my own source. My strength does not come from me. I realized this on a very still morning, as I sat alone in a room so quiet that the only sound was my own weak breath. I wondered why I had done everything right, why I had tried, prayed, persisted, yet still ended in emptiness. And in that silence, an answer rose inside me like a soft voice, not heard by my ears, but understood by my heart, that you are doing everything by your own strength. You forgot you are not the source. I closed my eyes without meaning to, and at that moment I felt a quiet light open in the center of my chest. It was not bright, like the sun, or vague, like imagination. It felt like a life turned back on after being closed for too long. And I recognized it. Christ in me. Not the idea, not the doctrine, but the pure, steady, living energy that is real beyond words. I had heard the phrase, "Christ lives in you," many times, but until that moment, I never understood that it was not symbolic speech. It was the truth of living energy. When Christ works in me, I do not need to force myself to be strong. I only need not block the flow. And that was exactly what I had been doing for years, blocking the flow with fear, with self-effort, with the belief that everything depended on me. When I saw this clearly, I whispered a sentence that opened a wide door in me. I will not do it by myself anymore. Please work through me. That sentence did not lift me instantly or make me radiant, but it shifted something deep within, as if I stepped onto a new ground I had never walked on. I was no longer alone in the struggle against exhaustion. I no longer had to rely on the small strength of my own will. Christ within me became the source, the spirit, the energy I had lost, not because it left, but because I stopped receiving it. Since then, every time I feel myself moving toward depletion, I do not try to be stronger or push harder or motivate myself. I simply place my hand on my chest and whisper, Christ is working in me. And strangely, that alone changes the atmosphere around me. The heaviness in my body lifts, not because I escape responsibility, but because I am no longer carrying it with human strength alone. Christ does not remove the weight from my shoulders. He strengthens the shoulders so they no longer tremble. There was a time I had to face a life-shaping decision. My mind was tangled, my heart was heavy, my energy felt locked. I tried to think clearly, tried to calm myself, but the more I tried, the more lost I felt. Until I sat down and said a simple sentence, Christ thinks in me. The moment I spoke it, my mind settled like water after the wind. Clarity came not from my reasoning, but from a deeper place I had never touched. And from that clarity, I knew what I needed to do. No struggle, no pressure, no forcing. I simply moved with the peace Christ placed in me. From that point, my energy no longer came from mood or inspiration. It came from presence, the presence of the one living within me. I do not work to prove I am enough. I work as a channel. I do not try to love to feel like a good person. I love because the love of Christ moves through me. I do not try to stand firm on my own feet anymore. I stand because I know the strength holding me never weakens. For years I thought Christ came to comfort, but now I know Christ comes to energize, to bring life strength, clarity, endurance. A strength that does not tire, does not fade, does not depend on emotion or physical condition. It is pure life. And when I allow that life to move through me, everything becomes lighter yet deeper, simpler yet more powerful. I share this not to tell you that you must experience the same thing in the same way, but to help you know that you do not need to carry everything by yourself anymore. Within you is a source you have not fully used, a source so powerful that the moment you open your heart to it, it can change the direction of a day, of a thought, of a life. When I realized the living energy hidden within me, I spent a very long part of my life trying to be strong by my own effort. I believed that if I tried hard enough, stayed disciplined enough, pushed myself enough, I would keep my energy, keep my clarity, keep my will. I thought strength lived in what I did, in what I achieved, in how I handled challenges. Then one day, when my body slipped into a level of exhaustion that no amount of self-encouragement could reach, I had to face a truth I had avoided for years, that I am not my own source. My strength does not come from me. I realized this on a very still morning as I sat alone in a room so quiet that the only sound was my own weak breath. I wondered why I had done everything right, why I had tried, prayed, persisted, yet still ended in emptiness. And in that silence, an answer rose inside me like a soft voice, not heard by my ears, but understood by my heart, that you are doing everything by your own strength. You forgot you are not the source. I closed my eyes without meaning to, and at that moment I felt a quiet light open in the center of my chest. It was not bright, like the sun, or vague, like imagination. It felt like a life turned back on after being closed for too long. And I recognized it. Christ in me. Not the idea, not the doctrine, but the pure, steady, living energy that is real beyond words. I had heard the phrase, "Christ lives in you," many times, but until that moment, I never understood that it was not symbolic speech. It was the truth of living energy. When Christ works in me, I do not need to force myself to be strong. I only need not block the flow. And that was exactly what I had been doing for years, blocking the flow with fear, with self-effort, with the belief that everything depended on me. When I saw this clearly, I whispered a sentence that opened a wide door in me. I will not do it by myself anymore. Please work through me. That sentence did not lift me instantly or make me radiant, but it shifted something deep within, as if I stepped onto a new ground I had never walked on. I was no longer alone in the struggle against exhaustion. I no longer had to rely on the small strength of my own will. Christ within me became the source, the spirit, the energy I had lost, not because it left, but because I stopped receiving it. Since then, every time I feel myself moving toward depletion, I do not try to be stronger or push harder or motivate myself. I simply place my hand on my chest and whisper, "Christ is working in me." And strangely, that alone changes the atmosphere around me. The heaviness in my body lifts, not because I escape responsibility, but because I am no longer carrying it with human strength alone. Christ does not remove the weight from my shoulders. He strengthens the shoulders so they no longer tremble. There was a time I had to face a life-shaping decision. My mind was tangled, my heart was heavy, my energy felt locked. I tried to think clearly, tried to calm myself, but the more I tried, the more lost I felt. Until I sat down and said a simple sentence, "Christ thinks in me." The moment I spoke it, my mind settled like water after the wind. Clarity came not from my reasoning, but from a deeper place I had never touched. And from that clarity I knew what I needed to do. No struggle, no pressure, no forcing. I simply moved with the peace Christ placed in me. From that point, my energy no longer came from mood or inspiration. It came from presence, the presence of the one living within me. I do not work to prove I am enough. I work as a channel. I do not try to love to feel like a good person. I love because the love of Christ moves through me. I do not try to stand firm on my own feet anymore. I stand because I know the strength holding me never weakens. For years I thought Christ came to comfort, but now I know Christ comes to energize, to bring life strength, clarity, endurance. A strength that does not tire, does not fade, does not depend on emotion or physical condition. It is pure life. And when I allow that life to move through me, everything becomes lighter, yet deeper, simpler, yet more powerful. I share this not to tell you that you must experience the same thing in the same way, but to help you know that you do not need to carry everything by yourself anymore. Within you is a source you have not fully used, a source so powerful that the moment you open your heart to it, it can change the direction of a day, of a thought, of a life.